A voice told me to run, jump out a window, and never look back. But 20-year-old Colleen Stan calmed her fears and went back to the car. Little did she know, denying this awful gut feeling of hers would lead to a kidnapping lasting almost 7 years. This is the story about the girl in the box, Colleen Stan. On May 19, 1977, Colleen Stan was hitchhiking from her home in Eugene, Oregon to a friend's home in Northern California where she was heading to a birthday party. Colleen was an experienced hitchhiker and had allowed 2 rides to go past before accepting the ride with a blue van. In the van was a man, Cameron Hooker, his wife, Janice, and their baby. Colleen felt confident as she had nothing to fear from a young family. However, this soon proved to be very wrong. At knife point in a deserted highway, Cameron Hooker forced Colleen Stan to place a handmade wooden deprivation box over her head. The Hookers then took Colleen to their trailer, where 7 years of torture, rape, and emotional abuse commenced. This was a premeditated plan from the Hookers. Cameron and Janice had reached an agreement that he could capture a slave to take Janice's place, because up until that time, Cameron had been using Janice to act out sexual bondage. On the first night of Colleen's kidnapping, she was strung up by her hands, physically attacked by Cameron, and left blindfolded and suspended while the couple had sex below her. Colleen was tortured and kept in a box 23 hours a day until she was given a contract and forced to sign herself into slavery for life. In the view from the box, under the bed, propped up against my purse, I saw a photograph of Marie Elizabeth, a previous victim of the couple, whose body was never found. Cameron would lie and threaten that Colleen was being watched by a large, powerful organization called the Company, who would painfully torture her and harm her family if she tried to escape.
Truly and honestly believed in the Company, and that they would hurt me.
Following this, the Hooker family moved to a mobile home in Red Bluff with Colleen, where she was kept in wooden boxes under the couple's waterbed. In 1978, Janice gave birth to a second child on the waterbed above Colleen. To avoid painful punishments, Colleen tried to comply with his commandments, which later led to her being allowed to go out to jog, work in the yard, care for the family's children, and help him build bigger accommodations like an underground dungeon for more slaves. Even with an open door, neighbors, and a telephone, Colleen made no attempts to escape as she was afraid of the Company. In addition, Colleen was actually allowed to visit her family by herself in 1981, but did not reveal her situation due to her fear of possible consequences. Her family thought she was involved in a cult because of her homemade clothes, lack of money, and absence of communications over the years. They did not want to pressure her, fearing that she would stay away forever. The next day, Colleen returned for a second visit, with Cameron posing as her boyfriend. However, when they returned home that day, Cameron felt that he had given Colleen too much freedom, and that was when he locked her in a wooden box under his waterbed, where she would remain in the box 23 hours a day for the next 3 years, bearing 38 degrees temperature during the summer. Bodily functions were dealt with her by using a bedpan, which she positioned under herself with her feet. Every night after Cameron's children had gone to bed, he would take Colleen out to feed and torture her. She was reportedly not allowed to make any noise and had to lie still 23 hours at a time in the dark. In 1983, Colleen was reintroduced to the children and neighbors. She was also allowed to get a job as a maid at a motel. Cameron wanted Colleen to become his second wife, which later turned out to be a turning point for Janice. Janice's relationship with Cameron was a series of emotional manipulation, abuse, and brainwashing. By August 1984, Janice told Colleen that Cameron was not part of the Company, giving her strength to escape. Receiving this information, Colleen then went to a bus station and phoned Cameron to inform him that she was leaving him. Cameron reacted by bursting into tears. Colleen subsequently called a bus home. In the following months, she did not contact the police but continued to call Cameron. It was explained at trial that Colleen wanted to give Cameron Hooker, at Janice's request, a chance to reform. 3 months later, however, Janice reported her husband to the police. She had informed the Red Bluff police that Cameron had kidnapped, tortured, and murdered Marie Elizabeth, who had disappeared on January 31, 1976. Authorities were unable to locate the remains of the woman. Due to the lack of physical proof, no murder charge was brought. Janice testified against her husband in exchange for full immunity. Cameron Hooker was sentenced to consecutive prison terms, totaling 104 years for sexual assaults, kidnapping, and using a knife in the process. So how is Colleen Stan holding up now? After the trial, Colleen studied for an accounting degree. She tried to move on to a normal life, but misery followed her. A string of failed marriages and a troubled child. Was a series of emotional manipulation. Series of emotional Emotional manipulation.